All right, everyone, here we are. We've emerged from the basement. I have Andrew Cartwright with me.
Hey, brother.
Great job today, man. You kicked butt.
Thanks, man.
You look good, too. You smell good. I know you wanted to clean up a little bit, and you did a good job. So here we are with 3 secret questions. I have to ask you, what is the most difficult part of being a leader, and why?
I think the most difficult part is you're really alone. There's no one walking in your shoes. There's nobody who knows all the dynamics and all the aspects and with all the resources and experience and know-how and know of and things that you can't necessarily say because as a leader, there are lots of things that happen that you have to withhold. And it's tough because I don't like to withhold anything. But I think being alone is probably the tough thing because you have to be, if you're going to be a strong leader, you have to have a good personal counsel where you can sit with yourself and be with yourself and make decisions and be responsible. Because at the end of the day, a true leader never blames anyone else for anything in his surroundings. Everything is his responsibility. And that's really, I think, what it takes to be a leader is there's always something you can do. Either you create it, promote it, or you allow it. There's no getting out of it. And any leader who is trying not to be responsible is not truly a leader.
That's good stuff. Very good. Listen, the guy knows what he's talking about. He's done it multiple times over, has earned millions of dollars as a result of being a phenomenal leader, and what he's saying sticks. Next question. You ready?
Yeah, I hope.
How do you lead through change?
Through change?
Through change. How do you lead through change when things are I guess you could say, becoming flexible and things are not as obvious as they once were? Because change is the only thing in the world that's constant, right?
You're right. That's what I was thinking. When you said that, I'm like, is that an oxymoron? Or because the reality is, I mean, in my opinion, like the Wright brothers, I think of, for years, people were trying to figure out how to fly, and they were trying to make flight stable, right? So you have wind, current, you have the earth rotating, you have all kinds of scenarios that are happening. You have different atmospheric pressures, you have all this stuff that's going on. And the reality is that they were trying to find, when they finally figured it out, it was how do you manage through instability? Flight, when you're flying a plane through the air, what you can count on is there's turbulence, you have very unstable flight. And I would say in business and also in your personal life, there's so much turbulence, there's so much change that's always happening. The idea of holding on to anything, really, that's not going to change is something that'll hold you back and is conceptually not even reality, because as soon as you have that moment where you see it, it'll turn into something else. So I think it's difficult for people who get older because they want to count on things to stay the same. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that nothing has ever stayed the same. So things are in a constant change, and from moment to moment, nothing is the same. And there's no... So from that perspective, you would be arguing with the reality, almost like an insane person, to say, what do you do through change? We are the change. It is the change. And change is all around us all the time in every moment. So great question. I know the thought was, but it's like, the Wright brothers, I'm not trying to make flight stable. I'm not trying to make life and business stable, because the reality is both are unstable. You've got underwriters I deal with in banks, and I've got attorneys that try and count on the law. But even when you go to a judge and you're in front of him, both sides will say that anything's possible, that it's a crapshoot. Even though we have all these laws that are written and all these case laws that are written, there's no guarantee that any outcome will ever be the same.
Right. And so how do you deal with that?
You don't.
You don't?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You just, it's going to be what it
right?
is.
Because we talked about this earlier. People get used to their rituals and the way that they live their life and a sense of comfort. And the minute that something is different than what they're used to, it throws a wrinkle into the system.
Yeah, but that's them trying to control something that's not controllable, right?
Right.
So in the essence of, and getting something to be in conflict with. Like if you look at a good movie, we need conflict to have drama.
Right.
We need drama to feel life. And, I think those things sort of spawn out of it. But what I find is and I learned this when I was 21, I had somebody like blast in my face, and I won't forget it. And the guy's name was Stuart, and he told me, he goes, the ability for a leader to lead and be dynamic is their ability to shift in the moment.
Right.
So if you can go from being, really angry and then suddenly see where you're wrong and completely go, you know what, I totally got it, it's my mistake, I totally apologize, I know I was angry, but the reality is you're right, I just didn't see it from your perspective, I totally get it now. They'll be like blown away. But people can get stuck in the fact that they still got to be right even when they know they're wrong. So true power is that ability to shift in the moment, in the essence of the moment. I race cars, right? If I can't shift the Le Mans prototypes, you're doing 100 and something miles an hour hitting a turn. And if you don't shift, if you want to make the car go the way you want it to go, but it's drifting in a way that it's going, you better get on board with the drift so that you can get back in control of the car to bring it around the corner. Because if you think that you're going to, argue with the dynamics of that drift, you're gonna spin with a top because you're on slicks, and those slicks will spin you out. You look at YouTube, you'll see me arguing with reality with my race car spinning off the track at 110 fucking miles an hour. That's me arguing with reality. If I would have just floated with that reality for a moment, I would have regained control of the car and been able to pull it around the corner. And I learned that later, but sometimes, they come at pretty huge costs, like blowing up your engine for $24,000 and yeah. But yeah.
Those are the laws of the universe. And change seems to be one, where it just
apparently
is constant and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, last question. Third one. How do you go about resolving conflict?
I think find out who's all in the conflict. I think most conflicts don't involve just the two people that are in conflict. Usually there's a third party that's part of the conflict that you're unaware of. So I think part of it is kind of fishing for okay, what's the third party in this conflict, right? Because all the conflict is two competing ideas, right? Or opinions about something. So I think being able to hear the other person and acknowledge fully hear the other person's viewpoint and theirs, and then fully doing yours, and then both objectively, not subjectively, trying to be right, look at it and establish what's going to work. Because there are ideas that I would want to be right about, but the reality is they don't work. And the more I try and be right about it, arrogant, self-righteous, egotistical, stuck in my ways, it's not going to work any more than what's workable. So what you think is right or the other person thinks is right in conflict, the reality is the closer you can acknowledge both different competing ideas and look for the workable solution that's universal to both sides, then maybe both sides can have a little bit, or you can test one or the other. But the reality is if we can step back and be bigger than the conflict, both people, then we can look at it like a game on a soccer field that we're watching as observers and figure out which is the best strategy that we can both agree on. So, and also finding out what you really both agree on, both parties agree on, and get enough agreement in there so that you can start seeing the more that you agree on, because quite frankly, most conflict, you agree on about 99% of everything, but you have one outstanding conflict that becomes the focus of both people's need to be right, to dominate, and to look good. And when we fall into the trap of trying to dominate, not be dominated, look good, avoid looking bad, be right, and avoid being wrong, because being wrong is death, being totally right is living, we get stuck in those traps. And if we can pull out of those traps and look for what works, then we're closer to resolving conflict. Anyways, that's my conflict conversation.
I like it.
Yeah.
You're great.
Yeah.
It's hot in here.
It's hot, yeah.
Well, there you have it. 3 Q&As with leadership with Andrew Cartwright. Great day today, my man. I appreciate you for everything.
Thanks, brother.
See you guys next time.
All right.